William Shatner. I've done a lot of things in my career, but this takes the cake. This is so cool. You, Joseph, today, it's all about you. You won the internet. Congratulations. It's exciting. It makes me want to celebrate. Makes me want to get up out of this chair. Makes me want to sing. Makes me want to dance. Makes me want to shout. Kick my heels up. Throw my hands up. Toss my head back. No, really, people should be shouting your name in the street.
Come on now. Sing
that song.
Joseph,
Sing it out loud.
Joseph.
I want to celebrate. Put it up in lights. See, no one else deserves to be celebrated like you because you are the best.
Joseph Jaffe. That's I believe that's a Japanese name. And but I tell you what, he's not famous. He's famouser than he was or used to was. But fame is fleeting, like a paperweight. It just comes and goes.
When it comes to chicken, I'm your guy.
Blinking.
I'll have what Joseph's has.
Look, somebody's talking about you.
This is what we call the voice of God.
Popping.
Everybody just gets to focus on you.
Grab me.
Probably not the best thing for an introvert.
I'm asking for you.
Well, I like a good chicken sandwich.
Touch me. Hi, David. Comment.
Oh my God.
Like.
You're actually an identical twin.
Push.
Maybe I'll just ask Julie to talk about what it is to be
No.
an identical twin.
Pick me up.
No, you didn't.
Shouting.
Surprise! Jeremiah, just hang on a second. I just got a text.
There's an edit for your new opening, Joseph.
I feel really honored to have been here, man.
By the way, you've done a masterful job. Seriously.
And it was such a joy.
Thanks, Joseph. It's an honor.
Good on you. This was a pleasure.
I mean, you are the prime example of how to pivot in this new environment.
I wish everybody gets an opportunity to interact with Joseph Jaffe.
Who needs Cameo when I've got my own personal Cameo? Well, welcome back to another episode of Joseph Jaffe is Not Famous. And how could I be famous when you've got George W. Bush and William Shatner introducing me, because they are decidedly famous. And I'll tell you who else is famous is Kelly Knight, CJ DuBe, and Mark O'Donnell. We're going to be talking about the famous book. We're going to be talking about people who need people are the happiest, no, not the happiest, the luckiest people in the world. I will not do my impersonation of Barbara Streisand, but if I did, hopefully, wait a second, it looks like Kelly, CJ, and Mark have now, they've just left. They've left the building. They're like, what have I signed up for? You know, CJ was warning me about her vertigo. I said, that's going to be the least of your worries. But I'm super excited to talk to the authors of, you know, as we say, and I happen to be an implementer at EOS, which is, you got people in your business? Yep. Fantastic. Second part, of course, is you got issues in your business? Well, if you have people, you have issues. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. But whenever there are pesky people involved, the machines have not taken over just yet. We have not been automated just yet. And until we do, we may as well figure out how to get the best out of our people, our talent, our lifeblood, because without our people, we are nothing and we have nothing. Now, as I've been doing every single episode, I've been starting off with my why statement. As a teacher, facilitator, and coach, I help high aspiring entrepreneurs, owners, and their leadership teams get unstuck, return to growth, and become forever changed. What does it mean? Well, you know, the idea of getting unstuck. If you're stuck, then the solution is to get unstuck. When I started this show in March of 2020, people were stuck at home or just stuck in general. And so again, if you are stuck, the best thing to do is to get unstuck. What about this idea of returning to growth? Well, that's why I became a coach. That's why I became an implementer, because ultimately, if we're not growing, then we're stagnating. And if we're stagnating, we are ultimately declining. And growing doesn't always necessarily have to mean top line and bottom line. Sometimes it can mean growing up. Sometimes it can be about prioritization, about being able to really focus on what really counts. And finally, Forever Change, the title of my new book, How a Global Pandemic Changed My Direction, My Purpose, and My Life. And you can bet your bottom dollar that my EOS journey is included in that. But now it's time for our seated soliloquy. And today I have a sound effect or a bit of music that's called snarky. More on that later. But today it's called Curious and Curiouser. You know, going through the whole looking glass. I tell you why I decided to call this soliloquy Curious and Curiouser is because I am curious about humans, humanoids, human forms. I love meeting people. I love spending time with people. And when I look back on 700 guests on the show, no two guests are the same. No two guests are alike. You know, I always say if someone comes on the show and they're underwhelming or they come across as boring, then I failed. I failed to be able to extract, to excavate, to be able to uncover or discover their unique story, because everyone has a unique story, and their story is the most beautiful story in the world because it is their story. And so the art of listening and active listening and asking more questions, the question to statement ratio, this is what we are put on this planet to do. It's not just about being a coach or being coached. It's about being able to really, really go back to our childhood where everything enthralled us, everything just completely inspired us. We just wanted to go deeper. We wanted to go down the rabbit hole. We wanted to get to know them by their name and their story. And that is a line, by the way, that is not an original line. I stole that from my daughter's college when she went to college at Washington University in St. Louis. Know every student by their name and story. Know every one of your employees, every one of your people, every client by their name and by their story. Get curious. In fact, get curiouser and curiouser. And now it's time for me to start to really deliver on my question to statement ratio. Do less talking and more listening. It's time to bring on the authors of the book, the new book, People. And I was trying to figure out the best way to do this. Do I bring them on one by one, and then the person who comes on is now kind of just watching and twiddling their thumbs while I introduce all three? So I haven't quite figured out how to do it except to say, let's bring them all on at the same time. And then I'll just introduce them all. Mark O'Donnell, visionary of EOS. Kelly Knight, the integrator at EOS, and CJ DuBe.
Hello.
Expert implementer, all the authors of People. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us, Joseph.
Yeah.
All right, so you ready for your introductions? I couldn't figure out the best way to do it. So I figured, like, instead of making one person look awkward, I'm going to make all three of you look awkward while I introduce you and read your bios. It's only, it's democratic. All right, so as the visionary behind EOS Worldwide, Mark O'Donnell brings a wealth of entrepreneurial experience to his role as CEO with a passion for helping businesses thrive. Mark has built and sold several successful ventures, earning a spot on the Inc. 500 and 5,000 list 12 times with 5 different companies. Through his work as an EOS implementer, he's guided about 100 companies in 500 full-day sessions. Mark is also the author of People. Otherwise, why would he be here a second time? Because he really likes me and he's a sucker for punishment. He lives outside of Philadelphia with his wife, mother-in-law, 3 children, and a 100-pound dog, Blue. Mark, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me back. I don't know why you would want the torture, but here I am.
That's what he said. All right, as we move on, Kelly Knight has served as EOS Worldwide's integrator since 2016. She's worked with 11 visionaries to date in her career, and we are going to ask her to rank them from most favorite to least favorite, and credits her father for being the first person to show her how to take an idea and make it real. Prior to joining EOS, Kelly honed her skills as an expert team builder for more than 20 years while leading dynamic organizations in the financial services industry. Hardwired to find talented people and guide them to reaching their full potential, Kelly harmonizes the major functions of EOS while driving accountability and organizational clarity. Her gift is leading with positivity and heart, with a passion for uniting teams to achieve the extraordinary. Today, Kelly's focus is sharing EOS with the world and growing the EOS community with people who are passionate about helping entrepreneurs get everything they want from their businesses and living their ideal lives. Kelly, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Joseph. Glad to be here.
And last, but definitely not least, CJ DuBe is a seasoned entrepreneur with over 25 years of experience in various business capacities, including managing a sales team for a large international company to acting as director of operations and HR for a facilities management firm. In 2006, she co-founded a human resources consulting firm and has since helped over 124 companies clarify, simplify, and achieve their vision through more than 1,475. I'm just going to round it up and say 1,500 sessions, because by the time you look at this, it will probably be 2,000. As an expert, there you go. Time to update the bio. As an expert EOS implementer, CJ is passionate about assisting entrepreneurs and their leadership teams and has spent the last 12 years working with and helping to grow the EOS worldwide community. She splits her time between the Twin Cities and Arizona and is a proud mother of 7 and grandmother of 12. CJ, the first air horn is yours. All right, what is harder, children, grandchildren, or clients? No, don't answer that.
Depends on the moment.
No doubt. All right, so we have, it's actually a beautiful opportunity because we have the visionary and the integrator at EOS. And one of the things that we talk about is this concept of rocket fuel. And so I thought, in terms of introducing you one by one, we would actually talk a little bit about the power of rocket fuel, the power of dynamic duos, whether it's Walt and Roy Disney, whether it is Henry Ford and James Cousins, or if you've ever picked up one of those 100 billion sold Ray Kroc and Fred Turner. The world is filled with examples of what happens when a visionary and an integrator come together for the greater good of the organization. So, Mark, I'm going to start with you as the visionary. Unfortunately, you know that there are AI images coming. And so we're going back to you as the visionary. One of the things that we read about in Rocket Fuel is this idea of the visionary creating the future, and then the integrator creates the plan to get them there. So how much time do you spend on visioning and creating the future?
Pretty much every waking hour in most cases. I don't take too many mental breaks. So just thinking about what's possible, what kind of impact we can make. It's a nonstop adventure.
And how much time, for the most part, is really, how much time is freed up to be able to actually imagine and create the future? I think it was Peter Drucker who said, defending the past is far more riskier than creating the future. How much time do you need as a visionary to imagine and create a better world and a better future?
How much time do you need? I think that's a relative term. The ability to work on the business versus in the business, I mean, that's the real breakthrough of the visionary integrator relationship, right? Because you get freed up. I mean, it is a rare occasion that I'm really in the business. Now, there's some things that I'm just interested in. There's some things that I do give state of the company messaging and writing and those types of things. But managing the day to day, that Kelly spends, I don't do it. Thankfully for everyone else, I don't do any of that.
All right. Well, let's say, and I love that distinction, the idea of in versus on the business. So now let's move over to you, Kelly. And so in going to my AI resources, I was thinking, all right, how do we represent the integrator? So I thought of, well, her name is Kelly Knight. Is she in fact the Dark Knight? Because she's no doubt a superhero. And so I guess I came up with this idea of Robin.
That's good.
So you became Robin. You became part of the dynamic duo. Yeah, it only gets worse from this moment on. But Kelly, Robin was a sidekick to Batman. How do you describe the dynamic duo of Visionary and Integrator? Is it Batman and Robin, or is it something else?
I mean, sure, that could certainly describe it. I mean, it's the yin and the yang of a relationship whereby the visionary is seeing 1,000 steps ahead, around corners. What does the future look like? How does what we do at EOS Worldwide fit into what's happening in the world, and how do we help solve those problems? And so he's the face of the company. He's great at culture. He's a tinkerer in the workshop, really experimenting and pulling levers to see what really works for our target market. And so the yang to that is that it's really just about matching we talk about matching the pace in terms of the execution and how do we make those ideas real. And so, however you describe that, that's really sort of what we do. And it's the 3-part puzzle, which is the visionary, the integrator needing to match, and then also with the business. So you've got to have the right fit of the visionary integrator to the business. And I think that's where we've been a really good match for one another over the years.
Mm-hmm. We actually got a comment here from Chase Bell who said, "People is great. Thank you, guys." I think it's the wrong syntax. People are great. Oh, I think he's referring to the book.
Yeah.
Of course. And we will get to that now. Now, Kelly, I don't know if it's fair to call you a chronic integrator because you've worked with 11 visionaries. So have you seen it? Have you seen? I know Mark is the greatest one you've ever worked with. You don't have to specify that, but what have you seen in terms of the difference between different styles, and different visionaries you've worked with?
Yeah, and certainly, and Mark is one of my very favorites. I get asked that remarkably often as who's your favorite out of the 11, but they're all amazing of their own right. That's the reality. And so there is stylistically different kinds of visionaries depending upon the life cycle of the business. So right now, Mark is just absolutely, in my opinion, the perfect visionary for EOS Worldwide because of where we're going and what we're doing. We're innovating and building EOS software called EOS One and doing a lot of things that have never been done before. But there stylistically could be a visionary who's part of a business that's more or less running as is with smaller tweaks and adjustments to what's happening. And some like to be very experimental, like Mark in the workshop, as I mentioned, while others are less interested in that, but maybe like to be on stage more. Mark can do it, but it's not his most favorite thing to do, right? So there's just these differences that occur that make each and every one of them unique. And it's pairing yourself to that visionary and kind of being the counterbalance and whatever that is and being adaptable. So very interesting visionaries over the course of time. I've loved them all. I could not pick an absolute favorite, but I love working with Mark.
It's funny. I had, and I know she spoke at the annual conference, Kim Scott. I had her on my show. She wrote Radical Candor and Radical Respect. I also recently had Urs Kunig, who wrote a book called Radical Humility. And I don't know, I just noticed this on my board, but I had a note of radical tweaking. You've spoken about tinkering. Maybe I need to coin a new phrase, which is radical tinkering. So I don't know. I just saw it there and I was like, that was interesting. Now there is a third leg of this. It's not a dynamic duo anymore. It is a terrific trio, and that is a CJ DuBe. Now, CJ, I looked up and down, and the thing that just connected with me, because I'm snarky and I know it as well. Snark attracts snark, and so this is what my little AI tool Are you ready for it?
Probably
Came
not.
up with. This is CJ DuBe as the queen of snark. So,
okay.
yeah. All right. Down.
You know who labeled me that though was MOD. Mark
I did.
O'Donnell is the one that said I'm snarky. So he's the one that labeled me that. So there you go. That is a good visual, probably.
Although Joseph, there is one person at EOS who wears a plaid jacket, and that is Mike Payton. So it almost looks like CJ, a combination between you and Mike Payton there.
Oh, that's no. Love Mike Payton, but hey.
Listen, I know Tyson Fury, I think is it Tyson Fury who's taking on Mike Tyson? No, it's one of the YouTube stars, but maybe Jake Paul, that's it. So maybe we need a DuBe versus kind of Payton.
Oh, that'd be fun, actually.
Caged match.
Joseph, we've done it before. We've done it before, so rematch would work.
My money's on you. My money's on you only because Payton is not here right now. So,
you know what? That would make for a great episode, though, Joseph.
That definitely would.
It would.
I'm game for everything. You know what's interesting, and I think Mark knows this because of his, underwhelming experience he had with me, which is, of course, how he referred to me. I'm joking. He didn't say that, but I have no notes. I have no show notes. I come in with a blank piece of paper with a blank canvas because of that curious and curiouser aspect. But there's actually another word that begins with a C, and that is chemistry. And I've never had 3 guests on at the same time, at least 3 co-authors. But it's clear that you kind of know each other, and dare I say, even like each other.
We do
very much. Yes.
Was that a bit presumptuous or no?
No, we've known each other for a lot of years as well, right? So
let's talk about chemistry for a second, which is because we're going to talk about human energy. And so I don't know if this is a physics or chemistry lesson, but talk about chemistry and how important it is. Can you create it? Can you manufacture it? How do you deal with good and bad chemistry from a culture standpoint? Should I be like, this is how I can pick someone? I can go, I'm not picking, anyone can jump in.
I mean, chemistry is, I believe sometimes it's grown. You grow as you get to know someone, and other times it's just a click. Like there is a funny story about Kelly and I when we first met. We met in a boot camp 8 years ago. She was almost her first day as the integrator of EOS Worldwide, and I was there as a coach. And we weren't sure we liked each other. And Payton, speaking of Payton, kept saying, just go have a glass of wine. You'll be fine, CJ. Just go have a glass of wine with her. Well, we had that glass of wine, and that was all the chemistry it took. Glass of wine, and we had chemistry. And Mark and I go back several years where he was an implementer, and he loved to try a lot of things his own way. And then eventually he came around to doing it all the EOS way, so much so that I was the head coach, brought him on as a coach. Then he became the head coach. And then I was the global community leader. And then Kelly and I kind of ganged up on him, and now he's our visionary.
That's a true story. Yes.
So I'm trying to connect the dots because that's one of my 3 uniques, which is this idea of being able to be a connector, a framer of dots and conversations. So best practice 1 is drink wine.
Yes,
A glass of wine, right? So
maybe not for Mark, but for Kelly and CJ, yes.
But I think the other one is this idea that you don't get a second chance to make a good first impression. You do get a second chance to make a good second impression, and maybe taking the time and having the patience to again get to know them and find those points of similarity as opposed to difference creates the spark, or at least the essence of a relationship.
Yeah, and I would say with chemistry, there's a lot that goes into us being on this call, but also just in the EOS community is the idea of core values. And core values really align us together such that the chemistry becomes pretty natural, if not immediately, pretty soon thereafter. And so I would argue that that plays a really important role. And, if you are grow or die, help first, do the right thing, do what you say, which are some of our core values, it's innate and it attracts one person to another. So, if you put enough people together that share those core values, you're pretty certain that you're going to end up with a culture of chemistry when done with intention, right? So I think that's what you see here, and that's what you see in the EOS implementer community.
We're going to bring the book into the conversation now. The book is called People Dare to Build an Intentional Culture. One of the things I noticed, Mark, was that on the actual book's website, you've got your core values speech. And I was thinking to myself, I wonder how many companies are embarrassed, afraid, or have some kind of a scarcity or even limiting emotion associated with being able to share that core value speech with the outside world. Is that something everyone should be able to or want to do, or is it a kind of proceed? Each company is different.
Well, I think each company is completely different, and for us, the reason we put that core values speech out there into the world for everyone to see is really just to model what it looks like, right? And so how do you create that chemistry you're talking about, sharing core values? How do you create this community that is your company? In our case, we have an actual community, but how do you get it shared by all? How do you really help people double down on their core values every quarter? Yes, I'm in the right place, right? I mean, I think there's lots of options that people have out in the world. And so every quarter, by delivering that state of the company, everyone, for us, it's implementers and our people, get to double down to say, yes, I am in the right place. I'm spending it with people I love, and I'm doing what I love. And I'm on the same mission. I'm bought into what we're going to accomplish together. And we put that on our website to really just demonstrate how we do that. And you can do it any way you want. We have a pretty simple framework of where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. But then also from a scarcity and abundance perspective, which we do talk about in the book, is that when you live in abundance, it's you recognizing that you're the only one. We aren't afraid of our competition seeing our state of the company and sharing what it is that we share, because we're the only one. We don't have any competitors, and neither do they. We're just doubling down on our uniqueness and our originality and our creativity. And that's what creates all abundance in the world. And I think it is a little bit of scarcity thinking to say, well, I don't want anyone to have my numbers. I don't want anyone to see our strategy, to see what it is that we do, because someone might take it. Well, that might be true, but so what? You're the only one of you that has ever been and ever will be. No one's going to be able to execute like you can in the way that you can and provide the value that you provide. And so there's really just no fear of sharing those types of things in that way.
I love that response. And, I'm a word person. And the word that, the obvious word is intentional, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But the word that jumped out to me was the word dare. I dare you. I dare you. I challenge you to go and build this intentional culture. Why the word dare?
Challenge. That's just it. Be courageous. I dare you. There was no other word. We went back and forth and around, and it is the word, because we are challenging everyone out there to build, create an intentional culture. And that's tough. It's not easy. So you've got to be able to dare to do it, be courageous enough to do it, and give it all you got.
I love that. And, to me, when you say there is no other word, there is no alternative, this kind of like all or nothing approach. Well, we had no choice. We had no choice but to move forward. We had no choice but to kind of, leap into the abyss, to take that plunge. Maybe sometimes, and certainly when we talk about head trash, etc., when we have too much choice, too much confusion and ambiguity, that's what actually kind of ties us or drags us down or holds us back.
And Joseph, when you think about Dare to Build an Intentional Culture, so often in business or in life, people are seen, or culture is seen, as a nice to have, not a need to have. But wherever you want to go, whatever your goals are, whatever results you want to achieve, it requires getting people and all that human energy aligned 100% towards the same vision, the same goals. And so there is no other path other than through courage to dare and build an intentional culture. So I think it's demystifying this idea that it's a nice to have, but it's all part of those who succeed and achieve most in life are not doing it alone. They're doing it with a group of humans that are uniquely positioned to achieve that goal.
Go for it.
No, I was just going to say, just everyone needs to know that it doesn't happen overnight either, right? It's like, to get all the right people in the right seats, it'll take time. It'll take 12 to 18 months. And repetition is the mother of learning. So we have to keep reminding us, this isn't something you go like this and it magically happens. It's something that you intentionally have to wake up every morning, every week, every month, every year, and keep working at it. But the rewards are amazing.
I really loved actually, Kelly, believe it or not, I've never heard the difference between nice to have and need to have. I've always heard nice to have and have to have. And I like the need. I like the fact that the need is there and pronounced, and whether it's pain or pleasure motivating. But let's go to school for a second and talk about the different cultures, because culture is there. It just may not be a good culture. So who wants to walk us through the healthy and intentionality, and the 2x2 matrix of the 4 types of cultures?
There you go, Mark.
Sure. Well, I think it's important to really set the context for this 2x2 and why we illustrated it this way. And it's a little bit about why we chose the word dare in the first place, is because what we've noticed is that people hold back. People know instinctually, or they know deep down that someone's not a fit, but they tolerate it, or they tell themselves a whole bunch of stories about why they need to keep that person around. And so it is a challenge to the world to move to that intentional culture. And as we're observing these companies that we're working with, observing ourselves in some cases, that we can really map this on intentionality and healthy. So I'm going to start with, you're highly intentional. You're doing everything on purpose, but it's not particularly healthy. We call that command and control. And this is, you see this a lot in kind of blue collar type businesses. Maybe it's a union shop where people are thought of as replaceable parts. And it doesn't really matter if you share the core values or not. You're just here to do a job. Shut up and do it. It's very transactional. The relationship has nothing to do with it. It is intentional. It's on purpose, but it's usually marked by high levels of turnover, low levels of engagement, and it's intentional. It's just really meant to look at people as replaceable parts. So then we go down a little bit and say, well, low levels of intentionality, low levels of healthy, we call that a chaotic culture. While you might have pockets of healthiness, but it's water cooler talk. It is gossiping. It's political. And nothing you do is intentional. Your hiring practices are really like pulse check, hired, like you're breathing, so you're welcome. Come on board. And so it's really just all over the place. Some parts might be good. Some parts are definitely not good. And then how it interacts is just completely and utterly all over the place. So then we move a little bit on to the right there, where it is healthy. So people know politics, people like each other, share core values, but it's low on intention. And this usually happens, we call it a happy accident, because it's the entrepreneur who's hired their family members that they like, that had a little bit of skill. They hired their college friends, and they just move along as a really happy little group. But they know that if they're going to grow, if they're going to get to where they want to go as an organization, they're going to have to add some intentionality. And oftentimes what happens is they just hire a bunch of people and they move right back into a chaotic culture. And that really healthy little nut, that core, it remains, but everything around it is unhealthy. And it's sort of like the cool kids and the not cool kids. It's like high school or something. I don't know. I didn't go, but I've heard stories.
I know that about you.
Yes, right. So then we're going to move to high levels of intentionality and high levels of healthy, and that's what we call that intentional culture. And Kelly hit on that a little bit with core values at the root. You're hiring and firing, reviewing, rewarding, and recognizing your people around the set of core values. You're IDSing, you're open and honest with one another. You're the right people in the right seats, so everyone gets, wants, and has the capacity to do their roles really well over time, which I'm sure we'll talk about. And it's perpetual. It is a never-ending activity. And we talked about dare, but build is another piece of that. Is you're starting from scratch and you're incrementally building with intentionality over and over and over again. The moment you think that you've made it, it's going to slip right, probably to command and control, maybe into chaotic, probably never to revisit a happy accident, but it's forever. It is a forever thing that you've got to embark on.
And just a really key point to link something that CJ said and what Mark had just said is that it does take effort to build it. If you are not in that upper right-hand quadrant for intentional culture, it can take 12 to 18 months to get there. And then as Mark said, to maintain it, you must continually be reviewing it and recognizing and making adjustments. And again, that word tweak again over time, but it's much easier to maintain it than it is to either never build it to begin with or to build it and lose it because you just don't maintain a system for measuring what's working and what's not working within your culture. So while the book takes you through the different steps and how to actually go ahead and build it, maintaining it becomes a whole lot easier, right? That part's, that's a maintenance mode. And yes, it requires effort, but it's that upfront part that I think many entrepreneurs are afraid of because they would rather just focus on other things that are candidly more interesting and more fun. But really putting the effort into this will pay itself rewards time and time again.
The thing that I wanted to, to add is there is, we've spoken about obviously at EOS. For those of you that are new to EOS, we talk about 3 uniques, which are vision, traction, and healthy. Healthy is kind of in that matrix. But then there's another word, which is traction, which is accountability. And so the overlay that I immediately started to see was high psychological safety and high accountability, which is a different, which is an important overlay as well. Accountability becomes a huge part of this conversation, and with that high psychological safety, that's another almost like a 3-dimensional add to this whole idea of a culture now that pushes you forward and doesn't punish you. In fact, kind of, recognizes and rewards not just the accomplishments, but also the risks, and the ability to push the limits.
Yeah, that's 100%. That's the intentional. I mean, every business I've ever worked with over 14 years, it's the accountability piece is always the first piece that people struggle with. We need more accountability. Well, it starts with an accountability chart. It starts with the seats. It starts with the values. Does the person match your values? And then do they GWC their seat? Do they get it? Do they want it? Do they have the capacity, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual capacity to do the job that you've actually asked them to do?
And just like that, we talk about GWC. When you presented this, CJ, I just completely just got sucked into this, this flow diagram. And I wanted you, the three of you, to talk a little bit about this, because now we're talking about the over time. We're talking about this flow channel and recognizing what happens when you fall out of flow, so to speak. So talk a little bit about this component, because this is the dynamism of maximizing your most prized asset, which is your people.
Sure. When you think about the accountability chart is a living, breathing document that's always changing, always moving. And you think about that from a seat perspective, the seat really does the same. When a company is growing, even though a function, the function actually grows as well. And so when you think about it over time, and you think about GWC flow, which really comes from the research from Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, which is all about when we are perfectly in our groove, we are in the flow of what we're doing, in the function, in the seat that we have. We get it, we want it, we have capacity to do it. But then when you look at challenge, the vertical axis, and you look at skills as the horizontal axis, what you're doing is sometimes you push someone. If you push someone too hard to grow, you challenge them because the business is growing, and you're asking them to really enrich and grow their skills. Some people are not capable at the pace that you want them to do it. And so then they get stressed out. And when they get stressed out, they simply shut down. They have a hard time functioning. And that's where the seat becomes too big or the seat becomes too small. In this case, the seats become too big for them. So you have to think about their unique ability and what you want from that seat. With boredom, in all reality, some people absolutely want the challenge. They need the challenge, and they want to consistently improve their skills, and they're not getting it. Ironically, when someone gets bored, they show up the same way. They show up and they shut down. They might be looking around the business for another job, or they're looking out in the world for another job. So the scenario is always being focused on what are the functions that you need in the seat, and how far can you challenge someone? How far can you give them skills? Because that is the line, seat too big, seat too small. Where's it at for you in your business?
You realize that this is very much the Alice in Wonderland analogy continues, because from Curious and Curiouser to seats that are growing and shrinking, or people, there's definitely a blue or red pill involved.
Mark is the researcher, I must tell you all. He is the engineer researcher. And so he is a lot of times our mastermind behind some of this.
Yeah, we're not going to ask him about colored pills at all. But and I'm glad that you mentioned that person in because I was thinking I cannot even pronounce their name. Say it again.
Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. Mark, how'd I do?
Gesundheit. Gesundheit's the only thing I can say.
It's taking practice.
You know, one of the things that's so interesting about this, and it comes down to, for people that are new to EOS, one of the things we talk about is this incredible 90-day world that people begin living in. And I just picked this up because I'm training it myself at the moment, is that in these every quarter, there is something called a quarterly conversation that happens between a boss and their direct reports. And I just read the other day, it fascinated me, is one question to ask them is, do you still want it? Like, it seems so simple just to say, and why would we be afraid just to say, are you still passionate? Do you still want it? Are you still ultimately, GWCing your seat? Why not just ask the damn question instead of assuming or being presumptuous?
Mm-hmm.
Well, and to take that one step further, you do ask, do you still want it? But also as the manager, do you want them to still have it? And do you see them wanting to still have it? Because their answer could be, depending upon that psychological safety and the level of trust that you have, you each may be seeing things very differently. So that quarterly conversation is about really going further and deeper on open, honest, transparent, vulnerable, trust-based exchange back and forth. So that's what makes the GWC component of that quarterly conversation, I think, always very interesting, is it's not quite as cut and dried as you might think it would be, asking those GWC questions.
It's a two-way street at the end of the day, which kind of leads me, to the human energy model, which to me is kind of, it's not a two-way street. This is almost like a chaotic super highway where I'm sorry, but I just call it the sperm. It just looks like the sperm model to me. But what happens when you've got...
Okay.
Yeah, we can edit it out later. No, we can't. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do that.
Thanks for me.
But let's talk about energy. Let's talk about human energy, because the one thing that fascinated me with this operating system is that it is a system for orchestrating and harnessing human energy. And so I just, again, going back to chemistry and physics, etc., I had to kind of read this idea that energy cannot be created or destroyed. The first law of thermodynamics states that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be transformed or transferred. How on earth do we now start talking about energy? What is energy? We're talking about flow and energy. What's going on here? And how important is it to get all of those little, arrows to be flowing in the same direction?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you go back to chaotic culture, that's what chaotic culture is. Chaotic culture is where the arrows are going in all different directions. The superhighway, however you want to describe it, right? The point is EOS, with the 6 key components, the model, and all of our foundational tools and all the tools that we have and we're teaching, is to get all those arrows moving in the same direction. That's what helps your business to grow. It helps make it scalable. And so it really is getting everyone on the same page with the values, with the seat they're in. The vision traction organizer. Does everyone know where you're going and how you're going to get there? All of that. And it should be whether you have 40 employees or you have 400 employees. It's about getting everyone knowing where you're going and how. How are you going to get there?
So, one of the things that for people that are watching, we have this personality assessment, I guess, called the Colby. It turns out I have no personality, but I came back 0, 0, 0, 0. But I'm a 3, 3, 8, 5, and the 5 implementedness of me makes me just want to hack the system and see the bigger model. And so suddenly I'm thinking, looking at this, which is you've got your chaotic culture, which is all of the arrows going in different directions. You've got the intentional culture where they're all swimming or moving in the same direction. I think you've got the happy accident, which to me, I visualize this as, 50% of the arrows are going up and 50% of the arrows are going down, almost again like this very ordered, highway, but not together. And then you've got the command and control where all the arrows are kind of together, but they are on top of one another. There's no freedom or space. So this is like, I can't help it. I just have to think about now new arrows and new models. But I mean, how does that sound visually, like in terms of this idea? Because this is what I took away, Mark, from how you described it. And the beauty of that description is, I think everyone watching would know and say, well, we're political, or, people are afraid, or we've got high turnover. There are clear signs, when you are not creating an intentional culture, no?
Yeah, if I was going to draw arrows on this, and I do want to address psychological safety as well. Sure. But if I was to think about how I would illustrate these, it would definitely, as you said, it would be the human energy model, all the arrows in intentional culture, and there's a lot of them. It's infinitely scalable. It can be 10 or 10,000, and all the arrows are pointing in the right direction. Chaotic, same thing. It's your arrows pointing everywhere. But if I thought about happy accident, there probably would be 3 or 4 arrows in that pool, and every new arrow that you added would be pointing in some unpredictable direction. But it would be fewer of them. It's not scalable, and it would be very limited. And then command and control, I would say maybe the arrows are pointed physically in the same direction, but they're just vibrating. They want to be pointing in any other direction than they're pointing, but they're forced to. Out of fear, out of losing their job, whatever that might be. They are pointing in the same direction, but they're doing it under duress. Mm-hmm. So that's the way they're wobbly. that's the way I would describe that if I use that energy model into the 4 quadrants.
I like it. I mean, this episode may have just become X-rated, but still, I will say I like your approach better, and you are the author of the book. But yeah, I mean, visually, those are great ways to think about it. It's head and heart, right? It's head and heart. Your head might be in the game, but your heart is somewhere else. And so, Kelly, bring us back to G-rated by talking about the power of. I mean, there are 2 things we still have to talk about: this idea of the connection between heart-centered leadership, and culture, and getting results and everything you want from your business. So, I recap the fact that Gino wrote this piece saying, with 2,000 sessions, you're catching up on him, CJ. That the number 1 determinant of success is a strong leadership team, and in his 7 tenets, the 7th one is love. What's love got to do with it, Kelly?
Mm-hmm. Well, love is everything. It's that secret ingredient that people so rarely talk about in business, because we get this feeling about it that it's like romantic love. And that's not what we're talking about in the People book. We're talking about this genuine care and concern. It can't be manufactured. It must be authentic. I will often say to integrators or anyone who manages humans, please do not become a leader or a manager if you don't love the good, the bad, and the ugly of people. And so, because you just got to love people genuinely from your heart. So every single day, that's what we obsess about here at EOS, is that real focus on that, because we know if we do that, everything else works itself out. And so it's putting, all the practices into place, whether it's tools or resources or training or education into that love. And so it can be very practical in nature. It's not always about hugging everybody walking around. While we sometimes may do that, we're a pretty huggy group here at EOS. It really is putting that practical care and concern into what we do every day.
And to elaborate just a little bit, Joseph, is genuine care and concern doesn't mean you don't have tough conversations. Mm. There are times that someone is not in the right seat and you need to have that tough conversation. But when you do it with care and concern, and you help them and you coach them, they get to the right place where they need to be. And for the greater good of the business, it's the right thing to do. There is, and Kelly says this often, there's this misnomer that you can't serve a company and people at the same time. And that's just simply not true. Mm-hmm. You can serve them both. You just have to do it with care and concern and be very intentional with what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. And we say in the book too that love is a verb. It's an action. It's the things that you do. It's not just your words. It's your behavior, words and actions culminating together that express how you do that for and with your team, and being really open to the feedback that you get from your team so that you can continually, again, progress. Nothing stays the same forever. Everything is always changing. So whether it be a seat, as CJ was describing, whether it be the culture, lots of things are continually changing. And so it's being very hyper aware of continually putting the love and care and elevating what you do every single day.
I would also, I hope that people who have read the book and are reading the book pick up on the fact that when we talk about genuine care and concern, we're removing the boundaries of the business itself. They might not be a fit for this company. They might not share the core values. We might not have a seat for them. And that is not a scary thing. That is not any type, because we're setting the framing of abundance and love versus scarcity and fear, which means that we're just removing the barriers of the business. It's all about the individual and helping them get to a place where they can be their absolute best, where they're thriving, where they're surrounded with people they love, doing with what they love. And that, and I want to tie that back to psychological safety, because I think the world has created a poor definition of psychological safety. They look at it as, I'm in this seat working for this company, and anything that comes my way that threatens my position in this business is removing my sense of safety. But the container is wrong. They should be thinking about psychological safety is it has nothing to do with this business. It has everything to do with you as a person. And to the degree that I can help you be with people that you love, sharing your core values, doing what you love, where you GWC the seat you're in, that's all good work. It doesn't matter if it's with my company or with another. And so I think people have created this definition of psychological safety as any threat to their position inside of a particular company. But that's not what we're talking about. That's not what we're saying. We're saying there is no threat. You may be better off working for someone else. Mm-hmm. Even though, yes, it might be a little disruptive to your life for a minute or two, but you're going to be happier. You're going to do better work. You're going to feel more fulfilled. You're going to live a better life. And it's just not going to be in my company or your company. So I just want to make sure that we're really, really clear that we are the way we are positioning, building an intentional culture. It's around, yes, your business, but the genuine care and concern has nothing to do with the container of a business. It has everything to do with the individual. And maybe you're a fit for my business and maybe you're not, but that's okay either way.
Mm-hmm. I think if you think of a lot of people out there that have, managed people and had to have that tough conversation and coach someone into another business to leave your business. I don't know about any of you. I do know about what I have here, but people have come back to me years later and said it was the best thing that ever happened to them. Mm-hmm. So when you do it with genuine care and concern and you help them go find that next thing that might not be in your business, it actually is the best thing for them in their life. And they will remember that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And imagine a world in which a massive number of people have total confidence in their unique gifts, mm-hmm. where they live in psychological safety because they're not threatened by leaving that business because they know who they are and what they're capable of versus living in scarcity. It would be a huge, huge difference maker in our world.
I love it. It was the one part of this conversation where for the first time I shifted into active listening mode, and the three of you riffed off each other, and I could feel the heart. I could really feel the heart, and it a lot of things clicked for me, which is the scarcity way to think of it is putting someone out their misery. The abundant way to think of it is you could be happier, more fulfilled somewhere else, maybe inside this company, maybe elsewhere. But you know what? Life is so short. Right. And as the saying goes, and I reject the saying that says no one ever said on their deathbed, I should have spent more time in the office. I say we should have spent more time in the office because we spend more time with the people we work with than oftentimes our own partners and kids. We may as well enjoy it. We may as well actually just put our backs into it and love each other.
100%. 100%.
All right. Well, it's almost a very natural way to end. But there was just one more thing that I just wanted to touch on for people that are watching, because this is personal. This is about individuals and about heart. First of all, I did want to mention before we move on, yes, I am going back to the sperm cells, but I loved actually this in the book. It says, which way is your culture pointing? And I've never thought of culture actually pointing. Obviously, you want it to point in the right direction, but it's probably more important for it to be in the same direction, and using all of the analogies. So I just wanted to point that out. But the last thing is this idea, and you talk about a personal VTO, and also something called a lifetime wish list. And I thought it might be a nice way to ask each one of you to talk about, maybe divulge, if you are comfortable, something that is on your personal VTO or what's part of your lifetime wish list that you feel like sharing? And of course, you can just say, I don't want to share it. It's for me. It could be a bucket list as well.
Yeah.
I just thought it was it was just something. And by the way, I'll start just to kind of like ice break. In my personal VTO, which is kind of my own individual VTO, my 10-year target was to have a Wikipedia page created in my name. It's just been a thing that guides me, because I know I could do it myself, but somebody, maybe they say terrible things about me. And then my measurable, when I created it, was number of subscribers on YouTube, because I'm trying to help more people by building my own channel. And so it just helped focus me. But in terms of lifetime wish list, I got to say, I've never been happier than I'm right now. So just more of the same. So that was my way of just kind of filling a little bit of air while Turner, who wants to go first or next, or just say no comment?
Yeah. Well, for my lifetime wish list, and so for context for everyone, it is the bucket list. It's just, what are the things, just dump it out. What do you want to do, experience, be, or have over your lifetime? And actually, I'm doing one of those things this coming next 10 days, which is I wanted to hike at least 5 14ers in Colorado. I'm doing 7 of them with my son over the next 10 days. So cool. I do systematically choose the things that are on that list. So for me, it's mostly travel related things. Now my core target is a little bit different, but there's the wish list item. I'm heading out to do that.
That's great.
All right. Who wants to go next?
Well, for me, everything personal surrounds 7 children and 12 grandchildren, and no, we're not done. So there will be a lot more to come. So for me, it's all about spaces, and I'm in the process of building this really cool space in Cave Creek, Arizona. Bought a new home there a year ago. Pool got done. Pool house is almost done. A couple more projects, so I have outbuildings for everybody to be. And then just spending one-on-one time with each one of my grandkids over the next forever years, and doing special trips just with them as they get older.
And just for the record, when you said we're not done, that means you're still planning on having more children. Is that what you're saying?
No. That's a firm no. I meant grandchildren. My children are not done.
So just on the record, thank you for clarifying, because... all right, Kelly, bring us home.
So I definitely have a lot of travel things on my list, just like Mark, but one of them that I've picked back up is to finish my Master Gardener certification. So I am an avid gardener with flowers, plants, and all things outdoors. So I'm looking forward to getting that done this year.
No doubt you will all achieve and exceed. For those of you that are new to EOS, there's something called the EOS life, which is to do what you love, working with people that you love, making a real tangible difference, being compensated appropriately, and still having the time to pursue other passions like hiking, gardening, having grandchildren, and such. And something that actually hit me is that it isn't just about us who are coaches, who work for the company or work with the company to live the EOS life. It's something we want and wish for our clients as well. And it is possible if you, I know Walt said, if you can dream it, you can do it. But maybe the answer is, if you can truly make sure that you have, this is going to be much more clunkier, have the right people in the right seats, building an intentional culture, have all of your arrows pointing the same way with high psychological safety, then you too can live the EOS life. And the book is called People Dare to Build an Intentional Culture. Mark, I dare you to come back on the show. Because if you come back for a third time, then I really know that you're a masochist, or we have fun together. And you do get a smoking jacket if you come on for the 5th time. The book is called People Dare to Build an Intentional Culture. You can get, I think, a free chapter download. You can find out more. You can watch that core values speech at eosworldwide.com/people-book, or buy it at Amazon. And, I think there is nothing more to say except to thank each one of you for being amazing people, having touched my life and inspired me along the way. And I'll tell you who else's life you have inspired is none other than Chuck Norris.
You are Chuck Norris approved.
And we will be back soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching the show about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing with your host, multiple author, and global keynote speaker, Joseph Jaffe. If you like the show, tell a friend or two. Please subscribe to the show, and if you want to get inside news, previews of upcoming guests, and much more, visit josephjaffe.com/subscribe to sign up for the show's newsletter.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.